Video, welcome on into the stream. So right now we are taking a look at the market for Power Hour here Monday on the 11th of April. So we're talking about a couple things going into the CPI data for tomorrow that maybe some have kind of forgotten about. But yes, that data comes out tomorrow morning for the month of March. Okay, so it's coming out in early to mid-April, and this is going to be talking or showing the numbers from March. So with that said, what we're currently looking at is we're currently looking at SPY. So the S&P just hit a new low about 20 minutes ago or so, and then it's kind of rallying off that low. This chart, I will say, does look quite familiar to me. And let's see if we can go find a similar looking situation. So take a look at this chart. We're looking at SPY right here. It's still below VWAP, but what we had, if you go back to last week on the 7th, this is Thursday, I believe, we had a very similar looking chart, kind of slowly kind of chopping down, hit a new low, and then ripped up and actually went green to the close. I don't know if we're going to be able to, if that is going to happen. We're not going to go green here, but my speculation is here, if we can get above VWAP, this actually looks like potentially a really nice risk reward play, at least for the next hour or so, possibly for a reversal, because it looks very similar, just playing off of, a very similar pattern we saw on Thursday. So we'll see if that thesis, that idea works out again. I did buy did a little bit of shopping today, I guess, on some stuff. I was a little bit premature in terms of my adding for some of my stuff last week, which is fine. You're never going to catch the exact bottom, and you're never going to catch the exact top, so I don't really care. So I added some of those that I had some cash. I still got about I got about 20% of the portfolio cash, roughly speaking, as of right now. So that's where I'm sitting at. And to be honest, that's where I feel pretty comfortable. I don't need to add any new positions. It's kind of like what I already got is fine. And I'm going to be adding to those as I see fit. So I add a little bit of JetBlue, add a little bit of the semiconductor play, add a little bit of biotechs. And we're in some ETFs for those sectors. And it's pretty much what we did there. The interesting thing that I was just looking at today is jets. You think to yourself, okay, market's down. You'd think airlines, travel getting hurt too. COVID. No, because what's happening is actually oil is down a good bit. So oil's down, jets is up. Now, there's potentially other stuff going on here too, but jets is actually having a nice day. So the airlines are doing quite well. And if the market rallies into the close, I would imagine this does very well. The big picture for this type of stuff, and of course, who knows, when this happens. So, I positioned myself in some JetBlue and whenever I have some Spirit Airlines, I still have one contract left there, and let it play out, give myself time, let it play out. Because swinging in day to days, you're going to have chop. But again, the real ignition for this move is going to be oil down, market up. We got oil down, we have market down, right? So now, if today was a day where the market was up, I wouldn't be surprised to see some airlines and some travel names up, 5-10%. Wouldn't be surprised with how much oil is down. So it's something to think about, something to look at. We also have to note this too. Here's SPY. It's red about just over 1%. Here's IWM. Small caps is green. Okay, IWM is green. Okay, the Nasdaq is down 1.5%. The Dow is down just over 0.5%, and the S&P is down just over 1%. And the Russell is green. It's barely green, but it was actually about 0.5% or so, maybe almost like 0.75% green earlier this morning. Dip went red, and then now it's back to green. So it's showing some good strength, relatively speaking, right there. VISL is green barely, but it's just letting it do its thing. I'm just kind of letting it play out. I'm not really in a rush. Again, the same kind of idea here. Eventually, I'm looking for a much bigger move, but hey, we get a good move up, back up over 125 to 150 zone, take something off, right? Same thing. This is kind of how I'm going to play it. Great news for small caps. Vero, VERU. This thing is up 200% today. Now, they came out with some positive phase 3 data for their COVID, I believe, treatment. Here's the reality. There's already more than enough competition. So the reality behind this play and this stock right now, in my opinion, if you're buying it up here, you could get lucky with momentum, right? And this could definitely hold up and squeeze. And I'll explain why I think it actually could go for a lot more in a second, but I'm not buying it because they came out with some positive data. Data was kind of like a little wonky just from what I saw. Again, am I like a super, am I a scientist? I mean, technically, I guess I have a degree in meteorology, so you can call me a scientist. I call myself a scientist as a joke sometimes. But no, I mean, I have no idea what this stuff really, I have no idea what the reality of this is. But I do know there's a lot of competitors in the space, not just vaccines, but then there's that pill. There's the COVID pill you can take if you have severe symptoms. So, there's a lot of other stuff out there. There's plenty where that came from. My guess is that, and then of course, fighting for your life as, okay, if you somehow are able to get a product approved, great. Now actually getting it in people's hands, getting it in use, is going to cost money, marketing, and all that stuff. So it's actually a lot more complicated than people think for these biotechs and for these companies. Now, again, up 200% is awesome for them. But that said, I mean, the reality of the news, I don't think is that impressive. And at least as of right now, it's impressive, but I don't think it's that much of a game changer for the company, given the competition. But this stock is easy to short. If I go right here, right now, I want to go get 50 shares short. Let me go see if I can do it. Yeah, there's no problem. I can go ahead and get shares right now on Webull. And the reason why that's a bad thing is because when there's availability like that to short some of these stocks, when something is too available, almost it's something where you might want to reconsider it. It's the obvious short that is not so obvious, which is what really kind of allowed for this front side move. And I'm going to have an explanation on this because I had a little bit of an experience this morning, I will say, because I had these two levels drawn in here. And I'll talk about that on Thursday's video. I figured I'd just make a whole separate thing for that because it's actually got some value. There's some valid points there to learn off the mistakes and off the lessons. But it's easy to short and they're hard to borrow. You can just get it. You can grab shares here on Webull. I'm sure you can grab it on other brokers platforms as well pretty easily. And so you're seeing that just squeeze kind of continuing to happen. Now, I think we can see this thing going further. So I would not want to be shorting this thing overnight. Not interested at all. It's not a super low float, but it's a fairly low float, and it's a stock. But if you look back to the left of the chart here, what have we seen? Some big runs in the past. It's done it before. It's gone from, looks like, around $3 up to 25 in a couple of weeks. It's gone from more kind of specifically from 3 up to about 11 in a very short span. And here we are from mid 4s up to, almost 15 today. So that's what we're looking at on Vero. It's got some shorts have kind of potentially gained control in a sense a little bit because they originally did not. This thing was kind of pushing up, and it did. I mean, we're looking at a 5-minute chart, okay? So you can kind of see things kind of on a bigger picture. But I mean, what did you see? Literally from this morning, each candlestick, each 5-minute candle close was actually, we didn't see lows below the low of the prior candle, if that makes sense. Okay, so like look at these candlesticks, right? We had this candlestick drop down to like 1050. This next one lows was 1070. Next one after that lows 1090. Next one here lows of 1140. Next one here 1210. And now that started to change, but for the longest time into like almost noon Eastern, this thing like higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. You didn't want to stop this. This train was not being stopped. And if you just tried to short this thing into prior areas of resistance or whatever, the problem was it would not pull back. So if you're adding into the short, what ends up happening is it doesn't pull back and you never get a chance to take some of your shares off. So let's say I had 1,000 shares, whatever it was, right? And then I had 1,000 shares at here at like 750, and then at like 850 I grab another, a couple hundred shares, and then at like $10 I grab a couple hundred shares. It never pulled back for me to just take some of those shares off, like the recent shorts. Like if I added some at $10, it never even pulled back to like, 925 for me to take off some of those shares at 10, lock in some gains on those shares. And now I have a little more power, a little more powder to reshort on the next move up, which we never had. So now after this pullback from 1257 down here towards $11, you had some shorts being able to cover for those who are a little bit more patient on this play. Some have covered, and now they could have a better feel or a better handle on playing this thing if it does keep pushing higher again. So that's kind of what happens, and that's the nature of some of these moves on these short squeezes. So, I wouldn't be interested, again, as it builds higher lows from here. I would not be interested in just randomly shorting it because, again, you can see how you can get screwed up just like this morning, right? So, good afternoon from my sunny DC. It's the sun's trying to come out here, but it's been cloudy so far. I had some thunderstorms last night. But other than that, though, it's been fairly Really nice day. It's like in the 80s now here, so I can't complain. Missed out on the very run. No, here's the thing. No need to worry about this. Obviously, you can look at this thing and say to yourself, there's a couple of things that you could have. How could you have seen it coming? The news, in my opinion, wasn't anything super special. So you got the news here this morning at 6 a.m. and then or 6:30 a.m. and then it pretty much popped up from 4:35 up to it hit up to almost 6:50. Then it pulled back down to about 5:50. Was up a good bit, but nothing too crazy. And then once the market opened, just the floodgates opened, this thing kind of picked up that volume and momentum, and it went for a crazy ride. Again, other than waiting till the open, you would have had no idea that was going to happen, right? We've had plenty of news that he was even much better than news in the past for other stocks that didn't do anything nearly right to the magnitude that we saw with Veru. So it's part of the game. Happy Monday, maybe not for the market, but in life. Yes, of course. You know what? Sometimes that, you got to go through. I think like we said yesterday, I think that this Monday pullback is actually a pretty, fair and makes sense. I mean, with CPI numbers coming out tomorrow, to me, it makes sense. And it's kind of what I kind of wanted to see, was a little bit more of a pullback in the market. And then now if we take a look at SPY, where is SPY on the daily chart? Well, guess what? It's just right. It pulled right back to that 50 SMA right there. So, it's in a really good spot around this 441 area of support. I think it's in a really good spot for a bounce. I think it's in a nice pullback from this. It had a nice pullback of about $20 off the highs from 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. And now we kind of are resetting a bit. And could it come lower from here? Could it pull under the 50 SMA? Yeah, sure, could it? But I'm thinking that this could be a possible bounce spot, especially depending upon the data tomorrow. Obviously, if things are worse than expected tomorrow on CPI, then it's not going to happen and they're probably going to go down further tomorrow. But if it's not as bad, or if it comes in line with expectations for the CPI numbers, well, then guess what? If you look around and you go look at oil really quick, let's go pull it up really quick over here. Where is it? What I want to do? Oil. So oil, if you go to oil, down 4% today. Come on, right? So oil keeps pulling back. It's under 95 now. The longer oil stays down below this $100, the better for the report in, what is that going to be, May, for the month of April. So, people will start looking more forward, being more forward looking. People will start becoming more forward looking, I guess. And then, which we know the market is. And so, it depends on how these numbers come out. If they come out and we start seeing certain categories, not actually pushing higher in terms of inflation numbers, I think we're looking in a good spot and, for the next couple of weeks, and we'll see how that plays out. But that's just my speculation into tomorrow's data. All right. So getting rejected here at the VWAP on SPY. So couldn't break that. I did buy a little bit more LODE. It's actually kind of interesting too. This is getting pulled back. I did exactly what I said I was going to do though. So we've been kind of playing this one exactly how I said. I bought some more shares at this 145, and then my plan is to buy some more at 130 if we ever get that. I don't know if we will. I doubt we will, to be honest with you. But I'm looking down towards that 130 as the next spot to add 500 more shares, bring my average down sub 150, and then play it from there. Looking for 2+ ideally on that over the next couple of months, maybe less if we get a spike, but next couple of weeks to months is the time frame I'm looking at on LODE. Been testing out new strategy on paper trades, 2 indicators, MACD, parabolic stop, and reverse indicator. So far, pretty impressed. It's how it's working. That's pretty nice. Hey, you know what? Everyone's going to have their own stuff that works best for them. For me, I would say that I've been liking drawing more zones instead of just lines. So drawing in more of a demand zone, supply zone, I guess, if you can say. Everyone likes to call it. There are different things, but really for me, it's a support zone, resistance zone, same thing, demand, supply, demand, same, pretty much the same concept. And then adding in or, averaging into that zone as an area to watch as support to accumulate some shares or contracts option wise, and all that stuff. It's actually kind of funny. If we look at, what's it called? NEO is really interesting. We talked about NEO on the stream last night, and we were saying hey, they got some stuff going on. Doesn't look too good over there in terms of delays in production and all that stuff. Well, what happened? Well, you essentially couldn't even take advantage of it. This is where it kind of stinks when this type of stuff happens over the weekend. You couldn't even take advantage of it. Now, looking back, yeah, you could have played the long side here, right? But you wake up, NEO actually went green at one point today. You wake up and NEO's down 10%. And it's like, oh, well, I missed the move. I mean, you could have went short, but like, hey, it's down 10% already. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not interested really, to be honest, in playing that. So then I had this line that I drew in from, where is this? If I go back to the 4-hour chart, it was the low. Yeah, it was the low back here on the 24th of February. And it was also a low back here on early March. So I drew this line here at this like $18 area this morning. And I was like, I can honestly think this could be a decent long. I wasn't, really interested either way, to be honest, but this could be a decent long. And we got that. Ended up being a long off that 18, which we dipped just below and then recovered quickly and then ripped up. And it would have been amazing because I guess, again, what was the play here? Everybody was going short. Everybody with this thing already gapped down, but everyone was already in short or was going in short, grabbing puts at the open because they're like, oh, is this bad news? NEO's going down, market's red, boom. But again, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Like, yeah, okay, in a weak market, yeah, I would have liked the NEO short, but the problem was NEO was already down 10%. So I don't know if I'm not gonna take the short when it's down 10% already. It's not a penny stock that can go down much more. It's already down 10%, But sometimes you miss them. It is what it is. Sometimes it happens, and so it's all right. That's why you just got to be patient and wait for the next one. There's no need to rush into there's always gonna be something else at the end of the day. Think about buying XBI contracts, multiple dates, one in June, one in July. Yeah, that's why I like the September time frame, to be honest, on the lobos. I do, because I just to give you time. Again, we saw what happened, and look what happened on the S&P, right? So look at what happened on SPY in literally like 2 weeks. SPY goes from 415 to 462, right? In like 2 weeks. So maybe it's the catalyst is the CPI numbers aren't as bad as people thought this month, right? Or from last month, right? And maybe all of a sudden we start pushing higher. Maybe the 10-year, right? We go back to the 10-year. The 10-year is pushing up again today. Maybe the 10-year starts pulling back from here. And now all of a sudden, you're looking at tech, you're looking at even the biotech, you're looking at the S&P, everything kind of lifts off. And now we have a bounce off the 50 SMA, and now we're back up here. And next thing you know, we had a move off the lows. Obviously, off the lows, different story than where we are now, but about an 11% move. Not saying you need an 11% move, but if you got an 11% move from where we are right now, 11% move puts you almost up towards 500 on SPY. You know what I mean? So a 5% move from where we are right now gets you really close, or gets you above the highs from 2 weeks ago, gets you really darn close to that 470 level on SPY. So you really, it's not that far away. And it can happen in 2 weeks, as we saw. So yeah, it's April. If you have June contract time frame, May, June, yeah, it's starting to get kind of close. But the month of May, for all we know, or even the second half of April, for all you know, could be like an insanely, strong period of time. Which historically speaking, April is green for the S&P. And we started the month of April roughly like right here at 450-ish on SPY. So, we could probably, I think on average the past like 10, 15 years has been like a 3% move in April to the S&P. So a 3% move from 450-ish is where we kind of were at the start of the month. 3% move from there would put you up towards, roughly, 465. So not that far away. It could happen very, very fast. You know what I mean? So based on what we just saw. So yeah, but that said, I still like having more time. Just having more time so that you can get the bigger move. If it continues, you're able to scale out of the contracts and it could be nicer. Yeah, okay. If you time it perfectly, like could you see some crazy short-term moves and can you get like crazy percentage returns on some contracts for June or for shorter time frames? Yeah. Yeah. But I don't really care. I would feel much more comfortable sizing and heavier and having time. That's how I feel. About that. Shop is running on stock split announcements. Yeah, I saw that today. Let's take a look at Shopify. What's going on with Shop? Shop is up 3%. I mean, the crazy thing about Shop is if you look at the daily chart on Shop, even though, right, you got some good news. I mean, look at this. I guess it realistically, if they didn't have this news, I guess, or stock split news, then we'd be probably pretty red, because the market's, NASDAQ's down, SPY's down. So you'd probably be pretty red on Shop. So it's green by 3%. But look at the range. The range on this chart is nuts. I mean, like Shopify could go back to $1,000 and no one would even care. That's the type of range you're looking at. Which if it did something like that, that's nuts. Like in terms of a return, that's like 50+% return. which is wild on that move. So Shopify is honestly could be setting up with an inverse head and shoulders here too. You know, you have this little shoulder, left shoulder here. Let's draw it in. A little bit of a left shoulder right here. You have this low right here, 510 area. And then now you have possibly, if this low holds from today and last week, if this area holds around $600, that could be a right shoulder, and boom, you could be setting up for that next leg up if the market cooperates with that. Something about Nia was like, no, yeah, exactly. Exactly. What do you think about Sava and you? Sava is interesting. Sava kind of reminds me, to be honest, of like how Vero is running today. Sava's getting crushed though. Sava just broke. Okay, now Sava just broke down below support. Here's the next spot I'd be looking at. This gap fill down to about, what is that? Let's just get rid of this box if we're out of that. Down to about $23-24. I would like to see that area, to be honest, on Sava next as a gap fill spot. Yeah, it could have bounced from here, sure, but that's going to be your area to watch as support. It was a resistance in the past back in 2021. Then now that'll be an area to watch as support. I haven't looked into anything deeper into the company. I do know that they were definitely an epic short for anyone who partook, or if that's even the correct way to say that. If you take advantage of this up over $100, yeah, there were some good opportunities there. But yeah, it's always a risky play with a biotech, stock on the short side. So I know some people who shorted it though, who were like, I hate this stock. It's going to be, this is trash. I can't believe it's going up. But they also, got burned on the front side of the trade, and then they were there for the backside, pretty much just making up for some of the losses that they had on the front side of the short play. But that is what it is. And then what's up with you? Unity Software. This is actually looking decent too. Unity Software, as long as you hold, you kind of have that same look, very similar look to a lot of tech names, inverse head and shoulders type of look. You can draw the left shoulder in here, or you can make this low right here, I guess, if you really wanted to. And then you have this area. And now you want to see it doesn't have to be today's low that holds, but you want to kind of see this thing holding up ideally over like $80. If it holds over $80, there's your inverse head and shoulders for a reversal, possibly to the upside on Unity Software. Again, this is another one where it's like, I think a lot of people are super excited about this one in terms of the longer term future outlook for them. But you're gonna have a lot of pressure, at least for now, until this changes with, for example, the 10-year being elevated. You have that. And then on top of that, you have, what else? We have inflation and we have the Fed. So if the Fed wants to keep raising rates at the rate that they're saying, then yeah, you're going to see pressure on these stocks, and the pressure is not going to just go away. Obviously the market's forward looking, but until we can start to get around that turn, around that corner of curbing that, I think that's the biggest thing. So the inflation numbers, I think, will be very, very key tomorrow, and then next month will be pretty interesting to watch as well, for sure. If that starts to kind of curl and turn or kind of top out, right? That's something to think about as a pretty big positive in my view, at least in the short term for the markets. And then we'll see how the Fed wants to react to that. Ultimately, that's going to be the biggest sign. I mean, unless something crazy happens, like everyone's kind of talking about too, everyone's very, very worried and bearish and this and that. I really don't see that there's a need to be like super overly bearish, right now, to be honest. It's until the Fed, is raising rates a couple more times. If they do it a couple more times at a half a basis point, then yeah, I'd be getting a little bit nervous, and because it's starting to, eventually something's gonna crack, something's gonna break. Just if we just look at the past history through of how that type of stuff works in the past, when the Fed's going through a rate hike cycle, usually it gets to a certain point and then it breaks. So yeah, you can get a couple rate hikes, pretty much nothing happens, and then if we'll see how it plays out longer term. So again, I still think we have months of time unless you had a crazy piece of news that dropped or something big, right? That was like out of control. That changes things. So puts it okay on Pfizer, J&J, PFE, can it go up 5 minute? 50 MA. PGen fell to 202, it bounced back. Let's take a look at PGen. This is a biotech, right? PGen is a pharmaceutical play. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's right in that, it's still in that spot, honestly. It's still right in this zone. So yeah, I would say, I want to see it holding the 2 area, but it's still in this zone. It hasn't really broken down below 2 yet. But yeah, I would imagine, look at Vero. Oh my gosh, this thing just got crushed. Yeah, I guess, well, there you go. That's one candle from $13 down to $11.50. One shot. So you kind of see, I think right now, I would my guess is shorts are much better control on this thing, and I think we're kind of cracking down. Again, this could get wicked, this could get swiped right back up just like that. But I think there's a really good opportunity on the backside of this one at some point. It's just the problem of determining when that backside is you have to kind of play it off of, I guess you can play it, you could play it now, depending upon how you want to trade this thing, versus, this like 1350 area, 1380 area, any pops from here, I'd be interested in shorting it, if anything. And then stop out over this 1380 spot. So to be honest, just a lot of games I can imagine, especially with this run, I can definitely see a lot of games being played on this thing. So I'm not super interested. Look at AT&T. Interesting if it continues to go up after new valuation. Let's see. ATT, ticker symbol T. Oh wow. So what's going on here? I honestly haven't followed AT&T in a bit. What did they do? What happened with AT&T? Let's pull up some recent news. Let's see. T is always weird. I always want to put in an A in there, but no. Trading starts to the new Warner Bros. Discovery media giant. Oh, okay. I remember seeing the news of that last week. Okay, so the Warner Bros. Discovery media giant, $43 billion combination of Discovery and the AT&T spinoff, Warner Media, have begun trading on Monday. Bolt up companies, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. AT&T last year decided to separate Warner Media as a company unravels its entertainment-oriented deal-making of the past several years and focuses on phone and internet service. Okay. I don't know. I haven't followed it close enough to be like, oh man, I like it a lot or I don't. But that's interesting. So then they're trading at $19-20. So technically they're up 7% today. Based on this, I guess, this move. The Fed hikes 50 to 75 basis point hikes. It's going to create the market. Also, Russia is on. Yeah, I mean well, the thing is, again, right? Even that, I don't. The Russia situation obviously has been ongoing. I feel like a lot of that is priced in. I don't know how that progresses obviously over time, but a lot of that is already priced in. But the thing about the other situation is the Fed, right? So if they keep raising, you're going to have time. It's not like it's going to happen in the next 2 days and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, freak out. I got to change everything. I got to dump everything, right? We'll see what the next hike is. If the next hike is a half basis point, that's pretty much what I would imagine they're going to do at this point, unless this inflation, these numbers aren't as bad as we thought, which I really can't imagine that with oil. But then again, right, the Fed could be looking back at things and saying to themselves, oh, these numbers are really bad. Yet then oil pulls back, and now its numbers next month are going to be significantly down. So I don't know. You get a lot of moving parts to that whole story. But yeah, I mean, if they raise twice like that, that's probably where I'd start to say, you know what, something's up, and I would be wanting to deleverage as it is. As it is, though, that's probably still 3+ months out, right? So we'll see how that plays out, but that's still a couple months out. Let's see. Labu dipped around 450 zone, good loading spot. There could definitely be more downside, honestly, but let's go look at the chart. Actually fell down to just under $14 at one point today. Usually these 10% down days are decent buy days on Labu from what I've been watching. But then again, you got to look at his XBI, so it could definitely come down more. Let's see what XBI is at. XBI cracked below the 50 SMA now, but this could come down into the 85 range, which is a couple of dollars, from here still. It could definitely come down. It can come down more than that if the markets stay pretty weak, which we'll see. In my opinion, though, I still like that as a buy for the next couple months at a minimum. We're seeing better strength across small caps in general. We're seeing decent strength across biotechs. We're getting some good biotech runners. So under the surface of the biotech space, and obviously some of these super small caps are not, represented in XBI, not all of them, but a lot of these under the surface, they're actually doing. There's some life. There's some life there. So that's what I like seeing how that's all kind of shaping up realistically across that front. So, I'll be I'll be watching that, and that's something that I'll be, obviously staying tuned to. I added a little more today, but I bought some more September. So I stopped buying the June. I mean, I have the June still contracts, but I have September's. Well, I was looking at Penn too. It's interesting. One that's been getting killed, hit new lows just today, actually, and then it's actually bounced back. It's up almost 3% today, which is pretty surprising, to be honest, but based on the market. But, you're kind of seeing that Penn is actually interesting. Penn trades kind of almost in line with IWM, a lot more than you may think. So IWM actually is not as weak as the overall markets today. So maybe that's why Penn is having, and they've had some decent news over the past couple of weeks too. So airlines are up today. Even Robinhood's up today a little bit. We have BBIG is up today. This thing kind of looked like it was super weak last week. No, it actually hit that 250 area and then it bounced. Okay, fair. Shopify is up today. DraftKings is up 4%. Well, that's probably why Penn's up. DraftKings is up. Delta Airlines is up almost 5%. Look at that move on Delta Airlines. Looking pretty strong there. We're seeing some cannabis names up. Party City. This is actually a funny little stock right here. Party City. I noticed this one. The reason why is if I go over to Open Insider, let's pull it up. Open Insider, PRTY. If I go over here, you're going to see that Party City has had some insider buys. So yeah, we got a buy here at 325, an increase of 6% of the position here for this 10% owner. And that was at a price of 325, right? So that was a decent amount of shares, right? 1.1 million shares bought, $3.7 million position right there, almost 3.8 added there. But this person has been also buying, the past couple of times too. Bought in the 5s, bought in the 6s, and bought in the 3s. So their average is at least, higher up. But 325 buy, and it had a nice little, it only made sense because I looked at the chart and I was like, oh, wow. I had some levels already drawn out here, and I kind of like this 325 support area. So if it can hold over 325, this might honestly be a candidate for a reversal play. Back up to the 435s, this little spike right here, and then up towards $5 next is what I'd be looking at potentially. So it was kind of cool. I just happened to see that a couple of days, or I think it was last week, and then chart was looking like pretty decent. So I was like, oh, okay. Skills, we've mentioned skills a couple times. So today is an interesting day, though, to be honest, across the board. Despite the market being red, right? Let's go to Finviz to actually get a better sense of what's actually happening. So despite the market being, pretty red, right? Dow down almost 1%, NASDAQ almost down 2%, SPY down 1.36. Where is that centered on? Energy, oil's down. We're seeing that centered on some big names, Microsoft and Microsoft in the NASDAQ and the S&P, and they've got a huge weight. And Microsoft and Apple have huge weights, and they're down, take the average of the two, you're down like over 2% across the average of both of them, and that's a big enough weight. Google's a pretty big weight there too, Nvidia's a big weight, Amazon's up there too, and Tesla's up there too. I mean, these are the big name stocks that have the biggest weight. They're pulling stuff down. It's simple as that. Under the surface, if I zoom out a touch, under the surface, there's a couple of, there's some banks are doing okay. We talked about banks last night on the stream. Defense plays are doing decent. And I guess I'd imagine they continue to do okay with the current, tensions right now in Russia and Ukraine. So doing that's going anywhere. Let's see. Yeah, outside of that, though, you kind of can see a little bit more green across the under the surface, right? But now, so what I want to get a better feel for this, despite the market being as red as it is, there are still almost 3,000 stocks green today, and there's just over 5,000 stocks that are red. 143 hitting new highs, almost 700 hitting new lows. Fair enough, and a decent amount. This number's come back off a good bit the past couple of days, but still a good amount holding above their 50 SMA. So it's honestly not, it's not as bad under the surface as as it could be, right? Even like a stock like Skills, right? This thing, in the past would get annihilated. It's actually not doing as bad today. Bitcoin, by the way, too, I want to mention this. Bitcoin is getting crushed. Well, I mean, not really crushed, but it's at 40K now. So it's back to 40K. It pushed up to 48 a couple of days back, but actually, again, it's pretty much in line with the S&P. I mean, really, it made the same move. It hit up to 40K. 48K around the last couple of days of of March. And then ever since there, it kind of topped off and has been rolling over. Now, if we want to draw a trend line, it's not perfect, but you want to draw a trend line from some of these lows. Yeah, you're coming down as we get down to like 39K. It's a decent trend line spot to watch on Bitcoin. So that's something to look for on a BTC as the market's pulling back too. So here's SPY pulling in a chunk a little bit here. Put a new low in now. 440.86 is the new low of the day. It's somewhat of a gamble if you were buying calls with like a very short-term expiration into tomorrow. But to be honest, with a pretty decent, down day going into the CPI, I'm not as bearish. If we were super, super green, I would be like, okay, maybe a hedge is not a bad idea. At this point, I wouldn't be dumping all inputs into the CPI. Just not really what I would think is the best play. We shall see tomorrow. How the semis been? They've obviously been red, but if we go to SMH, they gap down. Let's see. They gap down, and where are they? Well, they're honestly kind of holding up better than I thought. So they looked really bad, but they've been holding up. So they've been very, very weak over the past 2 weeks, really, ever since the bounce back. And once we kind of hit that 462 on SPY and pulled back, they've been very, very weak. So SMH is a semiconductor ETF. Look at this. They've come back, almost right down to those lows. So I like this. Honestly, if it holds this 237, great. I'm looking for this area to end up holding up. We shall see. I'm going to give it some time. I'm not just going to dump out of this. I have August contracts on my play here, so I'm going to let it play out. But I think we're in a really good risk reward spot for some of this for a bounce. Now, obviously, you have to understand the market has got to kind of go up for you to have a decent time here. Market can't just keep going lower, and you can't expect this to go higher. It's not going to happen. So that's part of the trade. But yeah, they're only down 1.8. It's not as bad. They've been down much worse with a less weak market. Market's fairly weak today, and they're not down as much as I would have imagined. I would imagine they'd be down more, but they're not up, obviously. So there's that. All right, Vero. Let's take a look back to the Vero. The top gainer on the day is up 175%. Jeez. So yeah, so it's technically built a higher low from this other pullback that we saw earlier this afternoon. A couple hours ago, back down to like $11. It pulled back in here to like $11.50. Now it's trying to bounce back up. This is one where I think the backside is your friend. Wait for it to establish backside, and there'll be plenty of room to the downside for the backside trade. 39K on Bitcoin too. You know what? I also just looked at as well. TLT. Take a look at this. TLT. Okay, it's falling off a little more now, but look at this. Big picture chart on TLT. This chart goes back a decade, okay? This is the 20-year Treasury bond ETF. That's what TLT is. It's right at this trend line that we have come down to now. Every time we've hit this trend line or this area, when we bounce more. Really, back in 2018 was a crucial spot, late 2018. So yeah, you're right there. I'm very interested to see what happens on TLT if we end up bouncing from here, or if TLT cracks this trend and goes down. And then if it does, then that's telling us the 10 years probably going 3% plus, realistically. So the Dow drops more than 300 points to start the week as higher rates send tech shares lower. That's just what it is. The 10 years pushing up. If you go take a look at the bond markets, let's just go take a look across the board. The 10 years at 2.79, almost 2.8. Way back to the bonds, the U.S. 10-year. Yeah, if that's what we're looking at. So that's the biggest push to the downside, especially for the market and a lot of tech names. But there are some decent names here, to be honest. There are some decent stocks holding up better than you would have thought, at least right now. So SPY down. Look at this. They're actually flushing out to the close. Look at that flush. Jeez. 440 is coming up pretty quick here on SPY. Yeah. So that's 440 on SPY. I'm seeing like some possible news out of Russia. Stuff's going on too. Russia's potentially dropped a poisonous substance from a drone causing respiratory failure. That's not good. no more details were released. So that's definitely not good. If that ends up, if there's something more, if that's actually true. So yeah, they're seeing, so it looks like we're kind of, I don't want to say we're back to that point, but we're kind of at that point where not unfortunately, you would think the oil would be pushing up with that, with news out of Russia. I don't know. I guess we're looking at for oil is a little bit of I think it's a big bit of demand destruction, which we talked about a couple weeks back, months back, maybe even now, about a month or so back. About the reality of when oil spikes that fast, you have demand destruction, which is actually like really not healthy for the price going forward, which we could be looking at now, despite everybody who was calling for $200 on oil, just a month ago, is now looking at oil saying, oh, it's under $100 now. Oh, buy the dip. And I can't tell you. I mean, I saw on CNBC. I honestly stopped watching it. But back when I was going to the gym, I used to see it on CNBC sometimes, and they were talking about, what moves they were making. I forget what part of the show it was. And they were like, yeah, this dip on oil is a buy the dip opportunity. They've been saying that for a while, and I'm not sure what they're saying now, but so far it hasn't worked out on those oil plays. Not to mention those oil stocks. Let's take a look at some of those oil stocks. HUSA, HUSA. Let's look at HUSA. What's HUSA looking like? This thing is down 12% today alone. I mean, look at this chart. I mean, you are just locked in to the downside. Now, shorting it here, yeah, could this? I mean, realistically, this is probably one of those plays that you can just, can see this thing going back down to sub 2, over time. The problem is the pretty expensive hard to borrow rate. So it's not something that I'd be super interested in wanting to short and hold overnight for many nights. But look at this chart, right? This thing fell under 5 and just slowly kind of dying off. I imagine we're going to see this thing under 3 and then under 2, and then you'll eventually see under 1 at some point in the future. Unless you get another spike in oil or there's some other move in oil, right? Or just low floats start running. Again, which, eventually you usually get some good runs like that, here and there throughout the year. Let's take a look at some of these other top gainers. So ATHX, holy sheesh, look at this thing. Flatlining here at like 50 cents. Then it picked up some volume and then ripped. Biotech ripping. So you're seeing some good biotech plays. Looks like off of the Veru move, some good biotech movement. Especially, are they in what are they? I wonder what this company does. Let's take a look. Novel proprietary best-in-class therapies designed to extend and enhance the quality of human life. So very general on that. Stem cell therapy. Yes, they have a stem cell therapy product, I guess. But yeah, it's getting a little bit of a pump here. And so these are honestly, I'm not sure. These are the types of plays. I'm not sure if you can even short it. Let's just see if they have shares. Let's just check. Let's just check if we wanted to get like 500 shares. At like 97 cents. Oh, you can get them. Interesting. You can get them. Let's see what the chart looks like here. Yeah, I mean, these plays are the types of plays. I mean, these are decent. Unless they have some good news or they get some really good continuation. They could get continuation. These are some decent short opportunities, I think. Well, we just took 500 there versus, let's just play that versus the 105 is like the spot that I'm looking at on ATHX. Parabolic move. And if it's dumb, so we can just cover that off really quick. But yeah, I mean, these are the types of plays. Like, these are some good ones. Obviously, just to short them randomly, like on the way up as they're grinding, it's dumb. But these are the ones that you'd want to be looking to short on the extensions like that, like a massive move, a massive extension up into a psychological area of resistance, and boom. Like, that's a spot to look at. So let's see if I can. I'll just put a buy in case it just dumps. But yeah, I mean, this is like, that could be a nice, like, what is that, like 10 cents off of just, not even trying. Just kind of randomly just testing out if there were even more shares. But let's just see, like, this is one of those plays, like, what's a float? Float is not even that small. Let's look, what is it again? ATHX. Finviz is telling me a float of 224 million. That's a pretty fat float. My guess. Oh, insiders, a little bit of insider action as of late. Let's see. Yeah, CEO bought some on the 17th of March at 77 cents. Interim CEO, whatever this guy was, bought or exercised options. Not a huge amount, though. This CEO buy was a decent, I guess. It was 132,000 shares. So it's like a $100,000 position, which is like not something to sneeze at, but it's not like huge. It's not like $1 million. So I'm seeing ads now for Nanos. It's actually funny. We should check on that and see how that's shaping up, and see if the volume is even there on Nanos. Let's go check it out. Nanos. Let's see how the option chain looks. All right, Nanos options. Let's see. Yeah, there's still no volume here. I mean, like the concept is good. I like the concept and I like how it could work. The spreads are huge and there's no volume. So until that changes, it's just like it's not interesting. It doesn't interest me, unless even these are still, there's not enough volume. Unless you go with something that's super expensive, there's not enough volume. So what these are, if you want to play these contracts, just like trading the SM or just like trading SPY options, you can trade Nanos. And when you see it, the price of 77 cents or whatever it is, like that's the actual price. So if I'm looking at an option contract that is like $9, it's going to actually cost me $9 per contract, not 900. Where if you were to buy a normal option for anything else. So that's what's cool. And it could be really good for a smaller account or just someone to learn or really to test out a strategy or try trading the S&P because, I don't want to say the barrier to entry is super, 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 super big, but there's a decent barrier to entry on that. And then it's volatile and it's pretty wild. So you get some wild swings and some people are scared to take that. And it's not a great place for beginners. So that's why you kind of can see that being a challenge, right? Being a problem. So that's that on Nanos. Still not worth your while, in my opinion, on Nanos. But all right, let's see. Wonder how the SPY 500s, they're definitely not doing good. Now this is the type of time though I would, if I'm thinking about it, I would be thinking about possibly jumping in on some Q. I would say not SPY. QQQ is more interesting to me. The lower this thing goes, I mean, could it come down to this 334, 335? I would love it down sub 340. In my opinion, though, this is something that I would just start accumulating, right? It's cracked below some supports. Great. QQQ, big pull down. I would be looking at, let's just see if we want to, I already have enough longs in stuff that's just, going to move if QQQ goes up. But if you want to just play it simple, saying, hey, I think the NASDAQ, I think tech is going to go back up. If that's what your thought was, you can look out to let's just say, I was targeting June. Let's go to August though, and just see how August is shaping up. August 19th, QQQ is at 340 right now. So if you go out big and go look for something cheap, you probably want to look up towards $400. You can get some contracts on QQQ up to $400. They're going to cost you like roughly right now, 230, 235. It's not that bad on the Qs. So I honestly kind of like, I kind of like that. Let's see where the chart's looking like. Yeah, if you get a push to all-time highs, where is that going to put you on QQQ? Yeah, 400 is all. Yeah, 400 plus is all-time highs. So yeah, if you're expecting that. Another thing to think about too, on the Qs and on SPY and all this stuff, you have some gaps now. So here's the daily chart. Let's go look at the daily chart. You got some nice juicy gaps, right? So QQQ falling below the 50 SMA. What do we got? We got a gap. Here's our gap. First gap. Second gap up here. You got some spots. These are going to be some good areas to target in terms of upside on the Qs. So those are some spots I'd be looking at, to be honest with you, as upside moves eventually, right, to take profits into. So if you start accumulating some contracts down here, and let's say tomorrow is a green day or this week's a green day, and you're going to move back up to the 50 SMA or up towards 350 on QQQ, take something off. Take a contract or two off, right? That's at least how I would do it. And then up towards this 360-ish area is the next spot. Take some more contracts off. So that's the idea. This thing is continuing to push. Let's see what we can do here. Let's see if we got to take this guy off. It's pushing up to, let's see, this 200 SMA, and then that's probably the spot that I would say, okay, I'm going to cut that. So let's go with a little bit, a touch more. And then the pending buy order. Okay, that's why. Let's do that. Oh, insufficient shares. That's when they do you dirty right there. That's how they do you dirty. So that's the problem with Webull, though, when you get into that situation. Insufficient shares. Now this thing probably pushes up and it probably touches that 200 SMA, and then my guess is it pulls off. We just kind of did it as a test for like a 500 share test case to see if you can get them, and you can get them. So we took a little bit of I guess I could have taken profits on that if I saw it, but it is what it is. But yeah, the difference between this and Vero is that Vero you can go in short right now, whereas ATHX you are now Weeble's out of shares. I'm sure other brokers platforms are going to be light on shares. You got to have a higher power broker to be able to short something like this these days, or at least right now at this point. So the good news though is that this is a biotech, right? What does it say? It's a biotech. Good news is that biotech is running. Hoth Biotech. It's a pharmaceutical. Okay, cool, whatever. Hoth looks pretty nasty. This doesn't look very, very enticing. This looks like it could be a nice short for tomorrow. I'm sure you can't even get shares though. Let's just see if you can get them on Hoth. I'm just like tossing just random shorts out just to see if we can get shares. I sometimes will do this on just like small size just to see if I can get them. No, you can't get them. Hoth you can't get. KTRA, I think it just popped and dropped pretty hard. Let's see. Yeah, but Vero you can get. I'm just going to double check Vero one more time. See if I could do like 25 shares, see if we can get it. Pretty sure you can. Yep, you can still get them. So to be honest, the ones where you can't get, generally speaking, those are the ones that ATHX is moving off the Ukraine chemical weapon use. That's why. Let's just make sure this is going absolutely haywire. That is a mess. That's not something I want to touch at all on the short side now that I think about it. That's why one of those things too. It's like if you're going to take the biggest problem for shorts like this is front side moves. If you're going to short front side moves, you're asking for trouble. You better be quickly able to cover that short. If you're going to short backside, it's like last week I shorted, with nothing crazy size, but Clever Leaves, CLVR, if we go back, find this one, let's go to the daily chart on this thing. Clever Leaves last week, it had its couple of days of spikes. It was like 5 days removed from the spike, and now your backside's established, and now you can just kind of guide down towards the 50 SMA, towards the gap fill. That's what we got. So it was a very, very just chill, not a super crazy, like, oh my gosh, I'm, freaking out. I'm down huge on this. It was a pretty chill, short idea, and that was it. So that was that. SPY falling in ADOI, UVXY is kind of stuck in the 12 to 14 range. Let's look at UVXY. I mean, it's perking up a little bit today. But it's been, to be honest, it's been less volatile. I mean, that's just what it's been. It's been these kind of slower moves down, right? Like, yeah, okay, SPY, with maybe the chemical stuff, going on or whatever, in Ukraine and everything now, potentially, which is not good, freaks people out, and that kind of accelerates some of the move here on SPY and accelerates the move on UVXY. But to be honest, I think like we haven't seen, like, if you just look at the past 2 weeks, like, look at this move. It's kind of like chopped down. It's not like we had these massive, massive red days. Like, look at the volatility we saw back here. We had some huge red days. We had some huge dumps that were then bought up massively. We had some big moves, like, up and down across the board. So that's why you saw UVXY going wild back then, especially on the down days. To be honest, now, maybe this starts to pick things up and we kind of, fall through here. I don't know. But that news does not sound too good out of the Ukraine, though. Let's just jump back and see if they're saying anything on CNBC. No, I don't think it's confirmed enough, so that's not like they can really say too much about it. At least for now, it seems like. QQQ has a lot more upside potential, but yeah, I would say, like, if I was gonna play one of those, it'd probably be the Qs, I would say, rather than SPY. They've been so much weaker though the past couple of weeks, though. Past 2 weeks, they've been so much weaker than SPY. Not even close. And that's, a good part of that is because of the bonds. So if we go back to the bonds, let's see the 10 years up here over 2.7. It's 2.78. Yes, it's up again today. So that's why. Crypto market, yeah. Sundial growers, possible big squeeze this week. I mean, anything can happen. I highly doubt that. Unless there's some news, there's some other cannabis news that is coming. I don't know, but unless there's some news, but maybe it's possible. But it's at the 50 SMA. It could be a bounce spot. Realistically, though, if you're talking like a squeeze, you want to talk about a squeeze, you got to talk about like Veru. Like Veru today is a squeeze. I mean, this thing, and even now it's kind of consolidating for a possible next leg. Never let shorts out of the trade, never pulled back, never died, and it just kept going. That's your short squeeze type of move intraday. So maybe short pack B, PACB. I feel like this is a familiar name. Pack B. Pacific Biosciences. That sounds familiar. Yeah, that does look pretty weak. It does. It's going to be weak until it's not eventually, right? Let's see if we can draw some spots here. So you kind of have, not perfect. Let's connect some of these lows to this guy. You're kind of like coming down to that like downtrending, I guess, support. 50 SMA is your resistance right now up here towards 1040-ish. It does look weak. I will say that does look weak. And it's given, this has been nuts. I mean, look, like this is the type of stuff that I really like. I mean, imagine getting this thing short up over $50 and you're just sitting here down under 8 now. Like, holy crap. This is the type of stuff that I would like to see. I would like to see more of bigger moves up over the next couple months for some really nice short opportunities. But we got to get a move up. So that's kind of what you kind of want to see. You got to get a big move up for some of those short opportunities to kind of represent themselves over the next couple of months. We'll see though. Thoughts on retail stocks? To be honest, I think that they could do decent. I don't know. We'll see how this report goes. My thought on the report is that we're going to see some categories kind of pulling off, right, in terms of their numbers, and they're not going to be as bad as they've been. That's my thought. Maybe it's dead wrong. Maybe it's right. Maybe it is. We obviously know energy, oil, that's going to be up. We know. You can go back and look at the numbers and just look at the price. I mean, if you go back to oil over the course of March, it averaged well over $100 the entire month. Now it maybe there's a chance that April averages under $100. Obviously, there's not enough time to tell us, how this plays out. But that's what we're looking at on oil. So we know that, and that was way higher than February, right? And the data coming out tomorrow is for the month of March. A lot of other categories, I remember looking, just remember off the top of my head, the used car market, right, was actually slightly coming down, right, off from the report, from the last two reports. So, after having a crazy year. So I think we can start to see stuff like that actually pulling in. And I think a lot of people, you kind of can see that this type of stuff doesn't, I mean, it's lasting, but like when you start getting really, really elevated levels, it tends to not last potentially as long as some may think. And once everyone starts freaking out and panicking, generally speaking, it spikes prices up even further, which then causes a spike, and then the backside comes. It's just like a stock. It's just like a lot of these squeezes, a lot of these moves. You get these big spikes, a big, kind of grinding, stuff's kind of grinding. Like, for example, ATHX, for example, let's just look at this chart, 5-minute chart. ATHX, boom, kind of grinding up. Oh my gosh, explosion move, spike. And now your backside's potentially establishing here. So now you have a much better backside trade, a cleaner backside trade off of that move. Off of that explosive move up. If you're shorting this thing into this move up, you're going to panic and freak out when it spikes and breaks and squeezes your short, right? Squeezes shorts out. And then you're going to be chasing it back in. So like that's kind of how I see a lot of stuff, to be honest. You can make a lot of parallels to a lot of other things. And I think inflation's a decent, we'll see if it plays out, but I think that's kind of what you're going to be looking at. By the way, Mullen. Here's Mullen. You're looking at Mullen at 280-ish area, couldn't really break it again, and it tested it twice and it couldn't break it. Now it's falling back off again. The market's weak, so that's probably why it's falling off. But SPY just fell below 440, so we're in the 430s on SPY. Wow. We're like right at the 50 SMA. I mean, again, depends how we're technically on track to close right below. We still got 7 minutes left. We'll see where it ends up actually closing. But look over on the left-hand side of the screen. There are still a lot of stocks on this left-hand side that you would not expect to be green on a day like today, right? BBIG, Shopify. Shopify had some news. AMC, DraftKings, the airlines, I guess, with oil's down. Okay, fair. Roblox is up 2%, 2.5% today. I mean, like, we'll see what happens tomorrow, but we potentially could have seen some of that, bottom being put in on some of these spec names, because for whatever reason they're holding up today. So for whatever reason, these things are actually not doing terrible. By the way, gold, look at gold's chart right here, holding the 50 SMA and kind of curling on up. It's sold off a bit from the highs earlier, but it's kind of starting that curl, building higher lows and kind of curling back up for a possible breakout here over this. Looks like 183.50. Got rejected there today. That was the high that we saw back on the 23rd of March. So it looks like this wants to go. And now you're seeing that shift. So, right, we used to see gold and oil trading together, right? And that was this big spike right here. Oil and gold. So oil's coming down, gold's going up. So you're kind of seeing them pulling away from each other a bit, which is what we were talking about, how we wanted to kind of see that for some of the thesis on some of the miners, the gold miners, and some of these, metal, rare earth miners to be good plays. And that's what we're getting. Which is why I still like my position on LODE. So we'll see. We will see. End of the month, Senate votes on the Moore bill. Okay. That's the situation for cannabis. Dump tomorrow until the CPI. I would not be surprised if, well, again, to be honest, a week close like this doesn't really interest me to be, looking to short tomorrow, because what happens is this. If you get puts now, and you have puts short-term expirations, you can have longer-term expirations, it's fine. If you get short-term put expirations right now, what happens? We had a weak day today that could have potentially priced in tomorrow. We'll see. There's some other stuff going on, and others in Russia, Ukraine. So, and that could be also why we're coming down to the 10 years pushing up. That's also why. But if tomorrow we come into tomorrow and all of a sudden we see the CPI, right, it comes out and it's not as bad as we thought, or it just comes in line. I kind of just expect it to come in line with expectations, right? If we get something like that, you could see, like, before you have a chance to get out of your puts, even if we gap down in pre-market, we could bounce right back like that. So before you even have a chance to get out of your puts, you can't, because the market's not even open yet. You still got, like, from when the CPI comes out, you still have an hour till the market opens. So a lot can change in a very short period of time. And as we've seen, that's the downside of getting puts here. If you want to get them, get time. Don't get like a very short-term expiration. I had puts last week for QQQ, which, looking back, slapped myself in the face, because this would have been nice. I had April 18th that I bought last week because it looked super weak, but I sold them on Friday. And then I had another 8 points down today on Qs, which those puts, by the way, I had. Let me look at the puts I had on this, which is never good to do. I mean, it's good to learn from. Don't get upset about this type of stuff because it's dumb. Yeah, here it is. I had an average around $5, maybe even less. I think my average was at $5. And they're currently trading over 10.50 on those puts I had last week. That go out about a week and a half. Jeez, actually, they go out about a week from now. So I gave myself plenty of time on them, but it was kind of a use as a hedge. And hey, we ended up working out, but didn't hold them long enough to make 100%. All right. Low-key love days like these. These are the types of days, though, to be honest, where, especially too, if depending upon what you're looking at, we're seeing good moves across biotechs. I like that. That's a good sign going forward in the market. We're starting to see, looks like I'm starting to see some talk about chemical weapon plays. So that's something to maybe start looking into in small cap land. I would want to confirm this news. This news. I'd want to confirm this news, though, of Russia actually using chemical weapons. If that's actually true, then that brings that sector. Then again, how long will that sector actually run, and how long or how fine of a line are you going to have to kind of walk on some of these names that are chemical weapon plays, but how many actually are and how many are just BS, right? You know what I mean? That's in terms of small caps, that's what you kind of have to weigh if you're going to play that sector. It's kind of difficult because it's not something, to be honest, we really have seen before. So when we had the oil run, yeah, it was easy. Okay, yeah, oil names, this, that, right? Okay, cool. Now, chemical weapon names, that's like, okay, well, what is that? Like, no one even, there's no, like, no one, I'm not sure many people have a list that's like, oh yeah, here are the 10 chemical weapon, penny stocks that I, have from last time. Like, from last time, when was that? So that's the only problem, which could be good because it could actually send some crazy move. It could send some crazy moves. Good for traders. Absolutely horrible for those who have to deal with it. If those reports are actually confirmed, which we don't even know. That's one of the biggest things we talked about in the past too. A lot of the news, everybody wants to capitalize and get views and clicks and this and that, right? So there's a lot of stuff that's going unconfirmed. There's this and there's that. So just be careful, be cautious, I would say, across the news. Make sure you understand, or at least make sure you can, vet the news source or whatever. You have a reliable news source. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, again, I still see like, hey, like if I go and look at like SOXL, market's closed by the way, so that is that for the 3 p.m. Like SOXL didn't die enough for me to want to add more. I bought one more contract, but this morning, but it didn't dip further. It didn't dip like to 25 for me to want to buy more, so I didn't really want to do that. I guess Labu Biotech ETF. I mean, it didn't go to lows of the days by the close. So honestly, I added some, but there was nothing else to do. I mean, I'm not going to add more of those. I'm already kind of positioned there, and that's it. On some of that type of stuff. So there's not really, for me at least, I added some stuff in the morning, and that was it. I added some JetBlue. Let's see where JetBlue finished today. JetBlue contracts out to next year. Yeah, I pretty much added that. I forget where exactly I bought them. Maybe I bought them here. Maybe I bought them later. It had to be some point in the morning. I'm pretty sure. So probably, honestly, maybe even red on those for today. I don't know. But I'm looking at a bigger picture move on JetBlue, holding up 1% from the close, last week, and dipped at the open and then ripped back up. So we're getting some good action, I would say. We're getting some good action. Just the thing about some of this action is you got to be careful. Make sure, like, for example, we just looked at ATHX is the stock. This thing rips up. It's very easy to chase, and then boom, get hammered. Make sure if you're starting to see something if you're seeing a stock that's grinding, and then it blows up, you don't want to be buying that. I mean, you could if you're momentum and you got to be quick, but you don't want to, most people don't want to be buying this thing after that blow up. If you can get it early, great, and that's all relative, right? Who knows how high these things go. Get it early, great, but this is the backside move we just saw. Like, this is your backside type of move that we can see, and it happens quite often and quite fast off of some of these major moves up. I'm definitely this week, so far starting the week off down, with the market, but that's just part of the game, being kind of exposed to what I'm exposed to. So that is that. Outside of that, anything moving in the after hours? Not really off the top of my head that I can see so far. Nothing crazy. I'm sure we'll get some continuation moves from some of the names we've been looking at, and all that good stuff. But that's really it. I'm waiting for some of my small caps to get some good news and make a nice run, which we'll get eventually at some point. But we shall see. Outside of that, I'm surprised Penn went up today. Labu semis, so biotech semis for me were down. Mesa had a green day. I guess it had with airlines and oil. Mesa, MASA, finally had a green day. Hit a new low though today, and then it went green. So, well, it got some volume, a little bit of volume there. We shall see. Okay, bigger picture though. Nasdaq was down a good bit today. Let's take a look at the old Finviz. Nasdaq down over 2%. Dow down 1.19. S&P down 1.69%. Some big movers, though, intraday, some very big movers. So we got some good action there. Just over 25% of stocks advancing today, about 69% on the nose, declining. 143 stocks to new highs, 709 new lows. And we're seeing less stocks now above their 50 SMA and 200 SMA. Makes sense because the S&P is now below the 50 SMA, closed just below. So, makes sense that a lot of stocks are falling back off. So with that said, I'm going to wrap things up. We will do another stream tomorrow morning for the CPI. 8:30 a.m. Eastern is the CPI numbers tomorrow. That is what we'll do. So I'll jump on a few minutes before that. That's the plan for tomorrow. So 7:30 Central Time, my time, the latest. I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm not expecting, to be honest, a massive reaction from the market. Maybe, depending on how drastically become above or below expectations, which you guys already know. The expectations here are quite like realistic. Like this stuff can be forecasted quite well. So it's not like we should see a crazy move. But that said, I'll wrap things up. I will see you tomorrow or the next day or whatever. We do go live Monday, Wednesday, Friday for Power Hour, and then we go live Sunday nights as well, usual schedule. And then tomorrow we'll do live in the morning because CPI is cool. Maybe it's not. I guess it's important to know, right? It's important to see some of that stuff. So that said, I'm gonna wrap things up. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.